Good morning, this is Thomas from thomasyoungauthor.com. Today is August 18th, it's 9 a.m. Yesterday I recorded a short video, but the audio quality was really bad, but I think you haven't missed out on a lot. It was not good, but my apologies. Yesterday I talked to, not yesterday but the day before, I talked about some people in the gay world. I talked about an LGBTQ police officer of the second largest city in this country. That's what he used to be. Now he left the police force and he became some kind of security guy. I never met him, but he contacted me a few times through dating websites and invited me to his biggie party with the methamphetamine and the escorts. But yeah, which I find strange because when I talked to him, I said, well, listen, you can also come to my place, and he was like, no, my boyfriend this, my boyfriend that. And I talked about before, they use their boyfriends, to as a power move, but that is not even that important. Important is, I want to tell you how that world seems to work, because you see, I've never wanted to be part of that world. I saw it basically as a place where I can find, sex. That was what it was for me. But I never had the desire to become part of a certain in crowd. I always refrain from that. That is not, I don't have such a personality. I don't know, but that me sort of being this loner and being outside of everything, and having this attitude of I don't need anything, I'm all by myself, that kind of stuff, got me in a lot of trouble. And I think part of why the gang stalking was such a horrifying experience and could take place was because I was already sort of isolated, before that. So isolating me from people even more, was not that difficult. And in order to tell you, one of the other stranger things I encountered, I need to go back to talk a bit about my ex-boyfriend, my last boyfriend. His name is Nikos. And as I told you, I always had the impression that he was sent by people to befriend me, to become my boyfriend and stuff like that. And so 4 years we broke up, and then later we saw each other on and off. We talked on the phone a lot, and that was it. And at some point I remember there was this prostitute. His name is Bauke, and he invited me, probably also through some dating website or something, to come to see him in the summer. And that was years after I left my boyfriend. And so we met at a park near his house. And I've met that Bauke guy before, like many years before, in my early 20s, like more than 10 years before that. And back then he was a very skinny guy, a prostitute, long blonde hair, filthy. He was not. One time I remember going to his place. I didn't know his name back then. I didn't know who he was. I just went to his place one time. I didn't even engage in sex with him because it was a little weird experience. But now, I don't know, what was it, 12, 13 years later, he invited me to the park. And then I went there, and then he lied there constantly in front of me, like putting up a little show. So he had his shirt off, and you could tell he was very fit now. He had a sort of very muscular body. He was not skinny any longer and stuff like that. So he was showing that off. And at some point, I don't know, we didn't really know what to talk about with him. So I said, something like, I don't know, oh, it's such a nice weather today, because I don't know, it was summer or something. I said something else, and then he replied by saying, oh, I'm just a prostitute. I'm only just a prostitute or something, he said. I said, why is he saying that? And it was also like really out of context. And okay, but I didn't give it much thought. Then we basically sat there in the park and we had nothing to talk about. And then at some point, he was telling me about that he sort of dated my ex-boyfriend, and he was talking a bit about him, and then but what he was basically telling me is that if it weren't for you, he and I, Bauke and my ex-boyfriend Nikos, would have had a relationship now. So he was basically accusing me of preventing them from having a relationship. And at that point, I didn't even think of it that much of it. It was like, it was a weird experience, but it was like, what was this? I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if am I that stupid that I don't get these things? I mean, now, and then years later, I confronted my my ex-boyfriend about it. I said, you know this guy? I went one time to the park with him, and I said who he was, and at first my ex-boyfriend said, no, I don't know him. I don't know that guy. And then I didn't believe him, and then I had to, nag a bit and, ask a question. And at some point he admitted it, and yeah, I know him vaguely and stuff like that. And then in the end, he had to admit that he basically told him, I don't know, they went out and they had sex, and then he had to leave, and he wanted him to stay. And then he said, no, I cannot stay, because when I see you, I have to think about my ex-boyfriend, Thomas, because he's not doing well, he has substance abuse issues, and, when I see you, I have to think about him, and that's why I cannot see you any longer. And, well, first of all, I mean, this is also how people like smear you. First of all, he doesn't give a shit about any of my problems, so I didn't see him very much. I talk to him every once in a while, and it's not a problem. I don't mind, but don't act as if you care. But second of all, he used me as an excuse to ditch this guy. You see, and that is really, really vile. You see, because these two guys, Bauke and also my ex-boyfriend Nikos, they have this sort of personality where they think everything is about selling an image to people of themselves. And what was so funny about this encounter is, first of all, I know my ex-boyfriend, he would never ever get into a relationship with a prostitute. But he has this image as if he does. You see, he goes to all the parties, where the gay prostitutes are, and then he's this cool guy, and he's from a Mediterranean country. So in this country he has I was always amazed at how servile and slavish people get when they are around him. So he knows that about him. He has a certain spell over people, and he has to sort of constantly he has this persona, and everybody is in love with him, and then stuff like that. And I was never that fond of him, and that annoyed him about me. But here you can see, they also believe in the nonsense they're telling other people, because that Bauke guy thought that was that was true, because at first you think, oh, this is some kind of conspiracy. They are in cahoots with each other. They did this on purpose. They try to trick me, because that's the impression you have when you get into these situations. But no, just by uttering one or two sentences to that Bauke guy, he basically, first of all, he smeared me and used me as an excuse for his, for him getting rid of him and bad behavior. But what he also does, he looks down on that Bauke guy. But what he does, then he says, no, Thomas looks down on you, and that's what that scene in the park was about. He was basically in telling me that he had slept with my ex-boyfriend. He was basically sort of celebrating a victory over me. So that's how he saw me. And I don't know the guy. I don't know anything. I didn't know that much about him. But still, he perceives me as someone he has to beat or something. And then I think, you know, I'm this bad person preventing him from having a relationship with my ex-boyfriend. You know, these are one of the many sort of weird situations you get in when you hang around gay people. I mean, this kind of, you know, the gay community, gay people, you know, the in crowd. With my ex-boyfriend Nikos, there was also something else. I mean, when we had a relationship, one night we went to this this other couple from Belgium. I think their name is Guy and Tom. And we spent the night there, and then at the time I sensed that they know each other. Now I also realize, you know, he is the person, a gay guy, for example. He works also at the Gay Romeo dating website. So they knew each other, but in my presence they acted as if they didn't know each other. This is really strange again. And I have the impression that he was up sort of in that fucked up hierarchy they have. Like, he had to report to him, and probably he was one of the people who sent him to me. But then his boyfriend, Tom, he was interested in me also sexually, you can tell. And later, much years later, at first he was trying to get me to date him for sex, and then I was refusing. And then he was, once in a while, he was sending me, up until recently, very recently, he was sending me constantly, he was sending me videos in which he was sort of penetrated by someone. And then I was wondering, why does he send me those videos? What is this about? Yeah, because, you know, I refused sex, or I didn't play along with them, not only with the sex, but also with the other things, and therefore I now need to be punished. And those videos basically signaled, okay, we will prevent you from ever dating with anybody, we will talk shit about you. And that Bauke guy from the park later even told me that, basically. They never say things directly, but he said, nobody wants to date you anymore. That was last year, and we had a brief exchange on Facebook. Nobody wants to date you anymore. So they all made sure that I am sort of smeared. And here you can also see how the smearing works. And then I wonder, I mean, how do you deal with such people? I mean, first of all, they never tell you anything. I mean, you get into these weird situations where you don't know how to conduct yourself. I mean, and I ask myself, am I that naive? I mean, no, I just don't see it because I don't engage in such behaviors. You know what I mean? I mean, these people are really sick. And so here you get an impression, like, of all those how these are teenagers. These are not even, I mean, these are like early teenagers. This is like, they have the level of almost children. This is really weird and fucked up. But it's not funny because, you know, these people are dangerous. I mean, they tried basically, you know, sort of drive me into suicide just for not playing along or refusing sex. Okay, that was it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Bye bye.